Good evening, you guys. It's your boy B Mahari here, representing Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. Much love to the entire LDBC and the basketball community. Um, don't miss basketball conversations. That's my weekly Friday show every Friday night, 9 p.m. Central Time, right here on this channel, where we discuss basketball related topics, news, historical stories, and everything else in between relating to the world of basketball. You understand what I'm saying? So for all the new subscribers that's coming in, make sure to tune in for that though. Every Friday night, 9 p.m. Central Time. Okay, let's get down to business here, shall we? Now, I overheard Too Raw for TV's video about how ESPN is heavily disrespecting Clyde Drexler by putting Ray Allen over Clyde Drexler. But I had the chance to look at the list, and apparently ESPN did a top 74 players of all time list again. When it's the first time they haven't even done it before, because a couple of years ago they did a top 100 players list. You understand what I'm saying? So anytime ESPN puts a list on of top of anything greatest players of any other league, you better just put your seatbelt on and strap up and get ready for some of the ridiculousness that it comes through, because a lot of the things they choose are far from ridiculous. But I was looking through the list between 74 through 40, and this is actually 41, and this is really beyond ridiculous of how really people are disrespecting a lot of these legends here, because Clyde Drexler is currently ranked 57th all time, below Ray Allen, Vince Carter, Paul Pierce, and Gary Payton, Tracy McGrady, James Worthy, and Wes Unseld. Now, Wes Unseld and James Worthy, they're legends, though, the two their own right, but Wes Unseld's not better than Clyde Drexler. James Worthy, I have no problem with them. I think he deserves to be a little bit higher on the list, but I don't have no problem with that thing. But Tracy McGrady, a guy that basically never made it out of the first round of the playoffs, is way above Clyde Drexler? Really? And then you put in Gary Payton. Maybe Gary Payton's maybe a bit of a stretch here, though, but, you know, maybe Gary Payton over Drexler a little bit to a certain extent, in my opinion. But then Paul Pierce, really? Paul Pierce and Vince Carter over and Ray Allen over Clyde Drexler? I mean, seriously, I swear to you, people are really disrespecting how great Clyde Drexler was throughout his career. All right. So, sure, he was playing in an era where Michael Jordan pretty much dominated everybody. But a lot of young viewers, young people don't know about this. Clyde Drexler averaged about 25 points per game during the 91-92 season and was second behind Jordan in MVP voting. Okay. The guy was in the slam dunk contest for 3 straight years and was a semifinalist. All right. This guy was an Olympian and was part of the great dream team that won the gold for the USA team. Okay. The guy's career averages are nearly 20.4 points per game. Okay. And pretty much he was on first team All NBA in 92, second All NBA in 88 and 91. You understand what I'm saying? A 10-time All Star. And plus, he scored over 22,000 points throughout his career. All right. This guy is heavily disrespected. And to top it all that, he led the Portland Trail Blazers to the NBA Finals in 1990 and 92. All right. This guy is pretty much carried that Portland Trail Blazer team on his back. All right. When at the time when Michael Jordan was pretty much owning everybody in the league, and he was beginning to own the league during that early stages of the 90s. All right. People forget those Blazers teams were really, really talented. You had Terry Porter as your point guard that went through a stretch where he was averaging nearly 20 points and 10 assists per game during that 3-year stretch. Okay. You had obviously Drexler. You had Jerome Kersey, who was a very athletic small forward that could play power forward, that could rebound, finish at the rim, had a good mid-range jumper. All right. Buck Williams was one of the best defensive power forwards, during that period of time. Always holding it down along the block, and also can provide you some rebounding too. Kevin Duckworth, former two-time All-Star, and was one of the most improved players. Plus, he was a guy that didn't get any playing time until after Sam Bowie was traded to the New Jersey Nets for the Buck Williams deal. All right. This guy was an excellent mid-range jumper, can get you 12 to 15 points per game. All right. Then you look at their bench. You had Clifford Robinson, one of the most versatile players of his time. He could play small forward, power forward, and even center positions. Okay. And then you also had Danny Ainge off your bench, though, too. So, with that being said, it's very, very disrespectful of how people are just blowing Clyde Drexler of how good he was. Now, sure, he had that infamous knee injury in '94 that pretty much took away all his explosive athletic ability. All right, but he was still averaging nearly about 20 points per game. And by the time he was traded to the Houston Rockets during that 94-95 year, he was still averaging 24 points per game, 21 points per game. All right. And during the playoffs in 95, he averaged 20 and a half points per game and helping the Rockets defend their championship and won his only ring in 95. So I really don't understand what ESPN is going with this. I mean, it's very clear to me how they're trying to belittle Michael Jordan's competition during that time. Because listen, all those great players, not just Drexler, Barkley, Stockton, Malone, Payton and Kemp, uh, Reggie Miller, Patrick Ewing, all those great players of the 90s could have won championships in any other era. But again, they all ran into the roadblock of Michael Jordan. I mean, that's just how dominant Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls were in the 90s. All right. You know what I mean? It's just unfortunate how these great players of the 90s, are not getting the respect and the recognition that they deserve of how really great these guys were. It's not their fault that they didn't win a championship. It's just that unfortunate circumstances and unfortunately running into the greatest player of all time pretty much killed their dreams of winning a championship. But I had to listen to True Raw for TV's, perspective on things, and he really was letting it loose. Now, let me say about one thing about Ray Allen, okay? I love Ray Allen. I think he's one of the greatest shooters in the history of the game. I think he's way better than Steph Curry, all right? But Ray Allen, to be honest with you, was never even in the MVP voting. And I had to research this. Ray Allen was ranked at least fifth in the MVP voting in the 2004-2005 season, okay? He played his early stages with the Milwaukee Bucks with that big three combination of Sam Cassell and Glenn Robinson. And people forget it was still Glenn Robinson's team. Glenn Robinson was their top franchise player before Ray Allen and Sam Cassell came. All right, so that is the first point. The second point, the Seattle SuperSonics were essentially his team at that time, but he also played with Rashard Lewis too, who was also very talented too. Before he got older, Rashard Lewis was also an all-star too in himself. All right, and Kobe Bryant pretty much said, "Don't put me in the same breath of that dude." And with due respect to Ray Allen, Kobe's right because Kobe was a far superior player than Ray Allen could ever be. And then when he got traded to the Celtics, all right, he played with the big three of both Pierce and Garnett and won his championship in '08. And I'm not going to sit here and say that he wasn't a token player. He made big shots. He was putting up big time numbers. All right, but him over Clyde Drexler, it does not make any sense to me. I just don't get it. I don't understand it. But it's not surprising to me considering the fact what ESPN likes to do to these legends a lot because they claim that they know a lot about their basketball, but most of them haven't even watched real basketball games when they were playing at that time to really get a grip and comprehend of how dominant these players were. All right. You put Ray Allen with that Portland Trailblazers team during the early 90s. They don't make the NBA Finals. They don't. They probably will lose in the first round or even most likely not make the playoffs. All right. Clyde Drexler was the guy that put them over at that time. Okay. You put Clyde Drexler with that Milwaukee Bucks team, I promise you, they beat the Sixers and probably beat Shaq and Kobe and the Lakers in the finals. I'm serious. I'm flat out serious. But I just wanted to give my 2 cents on it because the thing is, though, bro, like Clyde Drexler is just not getting the respect and getting the recognition that he deserves for a great player that he was during that time. All right. But unfortunately, that's what happens when you're playing under the shadow of Michael Jordan when he was playing at the same time where you were in, too. So I just want to come down here and give my 2 cents on the situation. But let me know what you guys think about in the comment section about Clyde Drexler. Peace.